Deadliest military units in history. Hittites charioteer. 3,000 years ago, the Hittites ruled the battlefields with one thing: chariots. But these weren't light Egyptian racers. Hittite chariots were tanks of the Bronze Age, heavy, wide, and built for impact. Each carried 3 men: a driver, a warrior with a spear or bow, and a shield bearer. Together, they were a mobile strike team, charging straight into enemy lines. At the legendary Battle of Kadesh, hundreds of Hittite chariots stormed into Pharaoh Ramesses' army, their thunder shaking the desert. These charioteers weren't just soldiers. They were the elite, the cutting edge of ancient warfare. Speed, power, precision. The Hittite war chariot, where teamwork turned wood and bronze into an empire's deadliest weapon. Assyrian Kuradu. Between 1000 and 605 BCE, the Assyrian Empire built one of the earliest professional armies in history. At its core stood the Kuradu, elite infantry who formed the backbone of Assyrian military power. Unlike earlier militias, the Kuradu were full-time soldiers, trained year-round and supplied by the state. They wore lamellar armor of bronze or iron plates and carried spears, string bows, and large shields for formation fighting. Organized in units with strict discipline, they could march great distances and fight in any terrain. Supported by chariots, cavalry, and siege engineers, the Kuradu helped the Assyrians master both open-field battles and long sieges. Their efficiency, coordination, and use of terror tactics made Assyria the dominant military power of the Near East, and the Kuradu became a model for the standing armies that followed. The Spartan hoplite, warriors of the phalanx. From around 650 to 350 BCE, the Greek city-state of Sparta produced one of the most disciplined military forces of the ancient world. The Spartan hoplites. Trained from childhood in the agoge, every Spartan male was raised to fight, obey, and endure hardship. Each hoplite fought as part of the phalanx, a tightly packed formation of heavy infantry. They carried a large round shield called an aspis, a long dory spear, and wore a bronze helmet, cuirass, and greaves. The strength of the phalanx came from unity. Every soldier's shield protected the man beside him. Individual skill mattered less than coordination, endurance, and courage. In battles like Thermopylae and Plataea, the hoplites showed how strict training and collective discipline could hold off far larger forces. Their methods shaped Western military thought for centuries. Persian immortals. From around 550 to 330 BCE, the Persian immortals served as the elite fighting force of the Achaemenid Empire, founded by Cyrus the Great. They formed a permanent corps of 10,000 soldiers, always kept at full strength if one fell. Another immediately replaced him, giving rise to their legendary name, Immortals. These troops served as both royal bodyguards and frontline infantry. They were armed with short spears, bows, and daggers, protected by scale armor or quilted robes, and carried wicker shields for mobility. The Immortals fought in major campaigns against Babylonians, Egyptians, and Greeks, most famously under Xerxes at the Battle of Thermopylae. Their constant presence symbolized the empire's stability and power, a standing army that projected Persian order across 3 continents for 2 centuries. Indian war elephants, the living tanks of the ancient world elephants. From around 500 BCE to the 1200s BCE, war elephants became one of India's most distinctive and powerful military assets. Used by kingdoms such as Magadha, Maurya, and later regional empires, these animals brought both strength and psychological impact to the battlefield. Each elephant carried a mahout, who guided it, and 1 or more warriors armed with bows, javelins, or spears. Their towering size allowed them to trample enemy lines, break formations, and cause panic among cavalry and infantry alike. The Mauryan Empire, under Chandragupta and Ashoka, fielded thousands of these animals, making elephants a symbol of royal power and military dominance. Though later armies developed ways to counter them, war elephants remained a key feature of South Asian warfare for nearly 2 millennia, influencing tactics as far as Persia, Greece, and Carthage. The Roman legionary, backbone of the Roman Empire. From 494 BCE to 476 CE, The Roman legionary served as the core soldier of one of history's greatest military systems. Originally citizen soldiers of the Republic, legionaries evolved into professional troops who built and defended an empire spanning 3 continents. Each legionary was equipped with a gladius short sword, pilum throwing spear, and a large rectangular scutum shield. They wore segmentada armor or chainmail and fought in highly organized formations that emphasized discipline and teamwork. Legionaries were also engineers and builders, constructing roads, forts, and siege works wherever they went. Their training, logistics, and adaptability allowed Rome to dominate from Britain to Mesopotamia. The legionaries' discipline and efficiency became a lasting symbol of Roman power, a model for organized, professional armies in the centuries that followed. The Greek ekdromoi, the swift infantry of the phalanx. During the 5th and 4th centuries BCE, Greek city-states developed specialized soldiers known as ekdromoi, meaning those who run out. They were light hoplites, trained to move quickly outside the traditional phalanx formation. While standard hoplites fought in dense ranks, the ekdromoi were used for skirmishing, pursuit, and flexibility vital against lighter troops or retreating enemies. They carried a smaller shield, a shorter spear, and wore lighter armor, often just a helmet and chestplate, to allow speed and agility. Commanders like the Spartans employed ekdromoi to chase off missile troops or seize ground ahead of the main force. Their role bridged the gap between heavy infantry and light skirmishers, marking an important step in the evolution of ancient battlefield tactics toward mobility and combined arms. The Macedonian Argyraspides, Alexander's silver shields. From around 330 to 310 BCE, the Argyraspides, or silver shields, served as the elite infantry of Alexander the Great's Macedonian army. They earned their name from the polished silver plates of their shields, which gleamed in the sun as they advanced in battle. These were veteran soldiers, many of whom had fought under Alexander's father, Philip II. They carried the sarissa, a long pike over 5 meters in length, and wore bronze armor and helmets for protection. Fighting in tight phalanx formations, the Argyraspides provided the disciplined core of Alexander's forces during his campaigns from Greece to India. After his death, they continued to serve under his successors, the Diadochi. Renowned for their skill, loyalty, and experience, the Argyraspides symbolized the peak of Macedonian military organization and professionalism. The Carthaginian Sacred Band, the elite guard of Carthage. From around 341 to 310 BCE, the Sacred Band of Carthage stood as the city's elite corps of citizen soldiers. Unlike most of Carthage's army, which relied heavily on mercenaries, the Sacred Band was composed of Carthaginian nobles and citizens who fought to defend their homeland. Numbering around 2,500 to 3,000 men, they were trained and equipped as heavy infantry, similar to Greek hoplites. They wore bronze helmets and cuirasses, carried large round shields, and fought in tight phalanx formations with long spears. The Sacred Band played key roles in battles against Syracuse and other Greek powers in Sicily. However, they were ultimately destroyed around 310 BCE in a defeat to Agathocles of Syracuse. Though short-lived, the Sacred Band represented Carthage's only true citizen army, a symbol of unity and pride in a state built on trade and strategy. The Persian Aswaran cataphracts, the armored cavalry of the Sasanian Empire. From the 3rd to the 7th century CE, the Aswaran served as the elite cataphract cavalry of the Sasanian Persian Empire. They were among the most heavily armored soldiers of the ancient world, descended from earlier Parthian traditions of mounted warfare. Both horse and rider were often covered in scale or lamellar armor, creating a nearly impenetrable wall of metal on the battlefield. Armed with long lances, bows, and swords, the Aswaran combined the power of shock charges with the flexibility of ranged combat. They formed the professional corps of the Sasanian military, supported by lighter cavalry and infantry units. In battles against Rome, Byzantium, and steppe nomads, their discipline and armor made them formidable opponents. The Aswaran represented the height of Persian cavalry warfare, influencing mounted tactics from the Middle East to medieval Europe. The Byzantine cataphractoi, the armored cavalry of the Eastern Empire, from the 4th to the 15th century CE. The cataphractoi were the backbone of the Byzantine Empire's heavy cavalry forces. Their name comes from the Greek kataphractos, meaning completely armored, and both rider and horse were often protected by iron or bronze lamellar armor. Armed with long lances for shock charges and bows or swords for close combat, the cataphractoi were trained to fight in coordinated formations, combining mobility with overwhelming force. They were supported by lighter cavalry and infantry, allowing the Byzantines to adapt to many types of enemies from steppe nomads to medieval knights. Their tactics emphasized discipline, timing, and formation control, often breaking enemy lines through well-timed, organized charges. The cataphractoi carried forward the tradition of the Persian and Roman cataphracts, remaining one of medieval Europe's most advanced and enduring cavalry units. The Norse berserkers, the fierce warriors of the north. From the 8th to the 15th century CE, the berserkers were legendary Norse warriors, known for their intense ferocity in battle. Their name comes from the Old Norse berserker, meaning bear shirt, possibly referring to warriors who wore animal pelts or fought with the ferocity of wild beasts. Berserkers were said to enter a trance-like state called the berserk gang, in which they fought without fear or pain. Armed with axes, swords, and shields, they often led Viking raids, charging ahead of regular troops to break enemy lines. While some historians believe their frenzy was ritualistic or drug-induced, others see it as a psychological tactic that terrified opponents. By the later Middle Ages, berserkers faded from real warfare but survived in Norse legend and sagas, symbols of raw courage, strength, and the untamed warrior spirit of the Vikings. The English longbowmen, masters of medieval ranged warfare. From 1066 through the 1400s CE, the English longbowmen were among the most effective soldiers of the medieval battlefield. Armed with the longbow, a powerful weapon over 6 feet in length, these archers could shoot arrows more than 250 meters with deadly accuracy and speed. Longbowmen were often commoners, trained from youth by law to practice archery every week. Their strength and skill allowed them to unleash volleys, capable of piercing armor and disrupting cavalry charges. They proved decisive in major conflicts of the Hundred Years' War, most famously at Crécy, Poitiers, and Agincourt, where English armies defeated much larger French forces. The longbow gave England a technological and tactical edge for over a century, shaping medieval warfare and demonstrating the power of disciplined, trained archers over traditional knightly combat. The Knights Templar, warriors of faith and order lith. From 1119 to 1312 CE, the Knights Templar stood as one of the most famous military orders of the Middle Ages. Founded in Jerusalem during the Crusades, their mission was to protect Christian pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land. The Templars combined monastic discipline with the skill of professional knights. They took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, yet became one of Europe's most powerful institutions. Templar knights fought in heavy armor, wielding swords, lances, and shields marked with their distinctive red cross. They served as shock cavalry on the battlefield, known for their courage and strict code of honor. Beyond warfare, the Templars managed lands, built fortresses, and even developed early financial networks. Their sudden fall in 1312, ordered by King Philip IV of France, ended their order, but their legend endures as symbols of devotion, discipline, and mystery. The Japanese samurai, warriors of honor and discipline. From 1185 to 1868 CE, the samurai served as the warrior class of Japan, upholding a code of loyalty, duty, and self-control known as Bushido, the way of the warrior. They began as provincial soldiers under the early shoguns and evolved into Japan's ruling military elite. Samurai were skilled in both mounted archery and swordsmanship. Their signature weapon was the katana, symbolizing personal honor and mastery. They also wore lamellar armor made of lacquered plates, allowing flexibility and protection in battle. Serving their daimyo lords, samurai followed strict principles of courage, loyalty, and honor, sometimes choosing ritual suicide, or seppuku, over disgrace. For nearly 700 years, they shaped Japan's politics, warfare, and culture, until the Meiji Restoration ended their role, transforming them from warriors into enduring icons of discipline and tradition. The Mongol horse archers, Masters of mobility and precision. During the 1200s and 1300s CE, the Mongol horse archers formed the unstoppable core of Genghis Khan's armies. Drawn from the nomadic tribes of the Central Asian steppes, they were expert riders who could shoot accurately at full gallop, striking enemies before they could respond. Armed with the composite bow, made from horn, wood, and sinew, their arrows could pierce armor at long range. Each warrior carried multiple bows, swords, and lances, and maintained several horses to travel vast distances quickly. The Mongols relied on speed, discipline, and communication, using signal flags and horns to coordinate complex maneuvers. Their tactics of feigned retreats and encirclement crushed larger, slower armies across Asia and Europe. The Mongol horse archers revolutionized warfare, proving that strategy, mobility, and precision could defeat even the mightiest empires. The Ottoman Janissaries, the Sultan's elite infantry. From the mid-15th to the 17th century CE, the Janissaries were the elite infantry corps of the Ottoman Empire, serving directly under the Sultan. They were among the first professional standing armies in Europe, combining strict discipline with advanced military training. Originally recruited through the Devshirme system, Christian boys from conquered territories were taken, converted to Islam, and trained for lifelong service. Janissaries mastered the use of matchlock muskets, bows, and swords, making them a formidable force on the battlefield. They played key roles in Ottoman conquests, including the fall of Constantinople in 1453, and were central to maintaining imperial power for centuries. Over time, the Janissaries gained political influence, eventually becoming a powerful institution within the empire. Their legacy endures as a symbol of discipline, innovation, and the rise of early modern military organization. The Polish Winged Hussars, the shock cavalry of Europe. From the 16th to the 18th century, the Polish Winged Hussars were one of the most feared and effective cavalry forces in Europe. Renowned for their discipline, courage, and spectacular appearance, they served as the elite cavalry of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Their signature feature was the wings, wooden frames with feathers attached to their backs or saddles. Though symbolic, these may have intimidated enemies and prevented lassos from catching them during battle. Armed with long lances, sabers, and pistols, and protected by light armor, the Winged Hussars specialized in devastating shock charges that could break infantry and cavalry alike. They achieved legendary victories at battles such as Kirchholm, 1605, and Vienna, 1683, where they helped lift the Ottoman siege. The Winged Hussars embodied the height of European cavalry warfare, combining elegance, discipline, and overwhelming striking power. The Nepalese Gurkhas, the brave warriors of the Himalayas. From 1815 to the present day, the Gurkhas of Nepal have earned a global reputation for courage, loyalty, and skill. First encountered by the British during the Anglo-Nepalese War, 1814–1816, their bravery impressed even their opponents, leading to their recruitment into the British Army. Gurkhas are renowned for their kukri, a curved knife that symbolizes both their heritage and combat prowess. Trained in mountain warfare, reconnaissance, and infantry tactics, they have served in nearly every major British conflict, from World War I and World War II to modern peacekeeping and counterinsurgency missions. Their motto, "Better to die than to be a coward," reflects their deep sense of honor and duty. Over 2 centuries later, Gurkhas continue to serve in both the British and Indian armies, standing as a living testament to discipline, endurance, and loyalty. The Zulu Warriors, the Spear of the Zulu Kingdom. From 1816 to 1879 CE, the Zulu warriors under King Shaka Zulu transformed southern Africa's warfare. Shaka reorganized traditional fighting methods, creating a disciplined and powerful army that expanded the Zulu kingdom across vast territories. The warriors, or Impi, were trained to move swiftly and fight in tight formations. They wielded the Ikalwa, a short stabbing spear, and carried large cowhide shields for protection. Their tactics focused on close combat and encirclement, famously known as the buffalo horns, formation surrounding and overwhelming the enemy. Shaka's reforms turned the Zulu army into one of the most formidable indigenous forces of the 19th century. Even after his death, Zulu warriors continued to resist colonial powers, most notably defeating the British at the Battle of Isandlwana in 1879. The Zulu warriors remain a symbol of unity, discipline, and African military innovation. The United States Special Forces, the Green Berets, from 1962 to today, the United States Army Special Forces, known as the Green Berets, have been among the most skilled and adaptable soldiers in the modern world. Formed during the Cold War, their mission was to train, advise, and fight alongside Allied forces in unconventional warfare. Green Berets specialize in counterinsurgency, reconnaissance, direct action, and foreign internal defense. They undergo some of the toughest training in the U.S. military, mastering languages, survival, and advanced tactics. First gaining fame during the Vietnam War, they have since operated globally in the Middle East, Africa, and Central Asia, often working quietly behind the scenes to strengthen local allies and fight terrorism. Their motto, De Oppresso Liber, meaning to free the oppressed, reflects their mission to empower others through skill, intelligence, and courage. Today, the Green Berets remain a cornerstone of U.S. Special Operations, embodying versatility, leadership, and elite professionalism.